And 2 pieces, hit stop. This will need to be put back in the machine, but I'll do that later. Okay, this table up here is our wedging table. When you come up here, you need to make sure that there's not a lot of clay chunks, dry things that are in the way. In order to deal with that, if there's stuff that's up here, we have boards that are located in these drawers right here. This is actually a bigger one, but if you find stuff that's dry on here, you're going to take one of these and scrape the table off to get the dry clay off the table where you need to work. You need to do this every time you work up here. This one's actually made of plastic and it works pretty well and it slides pretty well. The other ones that we have are made out of wood. Okay, the guy on the video showed you guys how to wedge yesterday, and that's what I'm going to show you guys now. We're going to take the clay in our hands with our palms facing each other, thumbs up. We're going to grab a hold of the clay, we're going to push forward and rock back. I'm going to do this about 30 times, and I'm going to try to mix the clay up completely, getting rid of all the air bubbles and lumps. Also, if there was anything that's hard that's in the clay that shouldn't be in here would show up at this point. By doing this process, it would probably pop up and actually show itself. So if you had part of a broken pencil or something in your clay, if you wedge your clay right, it'll make it so that you can find things that shouldn't be in your clay. Okay, so back to doing this. I'm going to go another direction. I want to do this again about 30 times. I'm going to go one more direction here, another 10. Okay, the guy on the video showed this was called ram's head wedging by giving this eyeballs. So it looks a little bit like a ram, the idea of the twisted horns, but that's the style of wedging. Normally I don't advocate you guys poking the holes in there. It'll create more air bubbles, but I'm just showing you for this type of wedging that's what this is called. I want to do that a few more times to get rid of those little spots where I just did that. Okay, this needs to be put into a ball shape. The best way of doing that is by patting at it to get it round. And this is about the right size piece of clay for what we're trying to do. You want about as much clay as your closed fist, so this is going to vary by person. If you have really big hands, you're going to need a little bit more clay. If you have smaller hands, you won't need as much clay. Does that make sense? We're going to be working on a 4-inch, a 5-inch, and a 6-inch cylinder. So for this is just a little bit bigger than my closed fist, so this is the ideal amount of clay for what we're doing. I'm going to do the same thing with this other piece. Alright, there's 15. Okay, now I need to put this into a ball, and now I want to move over to the wheel. Okay, each day you guys need to bring in basically 2 basic tools. Does anybody remember what those 2 things that I need for you guys to bring in? Yeah? Pencil and what else? Yeah, sponge. I'm asking you guys to try to bring in like a 2-inch by 2-inch piece of sponge, part of a cleaning sponge. If you want to get really fancy, they sell these at like Joann Fabrics and Michaels. This is a Potter sponge or an art sponge. These cost probably about $1.50 a piece. If you really wanted one of these, you can, but any 2-inch by 2-inch chunk of sponge would work the same way. So I'm going to use this sponge, and then the other thing I recommend for you guys bring is a pencil. The other thing you could do is if you have an old paintbrush at home, this compared to the regular pencil won't ever dull down because it's all solid wood. This works really well for being able to take and use to trim and to clean up. So if you had an old paintbrush that you could get a hold of to bring in, this would work really well as a tool getting sharpened in the pencil sharpener. Does that make sense? So in order to replace the pen tool, I basically have this smaller brush I did the same thing with. So basically if you had these, this would be something that would be able to be transported around and not get in trouble compared to some of the other sharper tools they showed on the video yesterday. Okay, with the Potter's wheels, some of them have foot pedals. This is mine. It's actually not the school's, and it has a foot pedal. So basically, for this to work, there's a switch on the side to be able to turn the power on. It has variable speed from really slow to really fast. The wheels that you guys are going to be using have 2 speeds. The switch is on, usually, I think on the right-hand side. One direction the switch is going to go, it's going to be a fast, and one direction is going to be slow. And if you put the switch in the middle, it's going to stop the wheel. Okay, so you'll have basically those three choices. These wheels are a little harder to use when you're first starting out because it's hard to figure out exactly what speed that you need to use for each technique. With the silver wheels, the fast speed you're going to use for your centering, your opening, and start to bring the walls up. Once you start to bring the walls up there, you'll want to put on the slower speed to finish your form for your cylinder and then cut the top off even and do your trimming. Does that make sense? About halfway through, you'll want to switch, have that wheel on the slower speed. Okay, what is this form again? It's a bat, yes, it's correct. So these, if you have a potter's wheel that has two metal pins that are sticking out of the top of the potter's wheel, you need to use one of these bats. If you don't use a bat and you try to use this, these metal pins will hit your hands and it will hurt your hands. This could possibly even break your hand. That's why I'm showing you this form for this class. So in order to put these on, there's a wide set of holes, and I'm putting my fingers over the holes. You can line it up with the bat pins and push it down over top. If it's on correctly, it won't slide around. If you don't have it on right, when you try to push on it, it's going to want to slide. Okay? We need to make sure that this is on correctly. So the easiest way to tell them is to put it on, put my hand on here, and it's not sliding around. Okay. For our clay balls that we prepared, I need to try to put this as close to the middle of the potter's wheel as possible. I don't want to put it on over here because when I turn the wheel on, I want to be chasing that around, and I don't want to have that happen when I'm trying to get the clay centered. I want to try to start in the best possible situation where this is as close to the middle as possible. The other thing too, if I just set the clay on here and I turn the wheel on really high, this is just going to roll right off. I need to put the clay on with enough force so it's going to cause it to temporarily attach to the bat itself. You don't want a lot of clay on the surface. If you have a bat and it's like this and there's a lot of dust on here, this could possibly make it so it won't stick. This bat, because it's pretty clean, I know it's going to want to adhere to the surface. So now I need to connect the clay onto the surface with a little bit of force. Just like that. Okay? So now the first step on working on the potter's wheel, does anybody remember what it is? It starts with a C. Yeah, it's centering. So with this, I'm going to set the speed to what I want. I'm going to take my foot off the foot pedal, especially when you guys are new. If you're going to use one of these wheels, it's really hard to control and balance on top of the foot pedal and try to control the speed and try to do the other movements if you're on the foot pedal itself with your foot. So it's easier to set it and just move it out of the way like what I had done. This is going to be about the speed of your Silver's Potter wheels on the fast speed. To get this centered, I need to get this wet. The sponge is going to come in handy for that. I'm going to take a little bit of water. I'm going to get water on my hands. And next I need to get my feet placed in a way so I can be stable, and I need to be as close to the potter's wheel as possible. I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm almost directly right over top of the potter's wheel. If I'm really too far back and I try to do this and my elbows are straightened out, it's going to push me around. Even with me being as big as what I am, if I don't use good technique, it won't work. So I need to get in the situation. I'm as close to the potter's wheel as possible. My feet are flat on the ground. I'm going to use one hand on the side and one hand on the top, creating a form with my hands. I'm going to put pressure through my palms. I don't want to push through my fingers. My fingers, I'm going to have them interlocked on top like this. My thumbs are going to be interlocked. So I'm going to basically create a form with my hands. Elbows are going to be against my legs. I'm going to push in with the hand from the side and down with the hand from the top. So it's going to look like this. And I'm going to stop. You see directly where the slip is on my hands. You can tell pretty much right where I'm pushing with the shape that's showing up on my hands. Yes, my fingers right here riding on there a little bit, but I'm putting most of the pressure on my hand with the side, through my palm and through my palm, so right directly through the middle of my hands. Okay, I'm going to get my hands wet again and do the same thing. Press down and in at the same time. Hands interlocked, my elbows against my legs. Okay. The idea with this being centered means I can basically put my finger to the edge of it, like the edge of this potter's wheel, without my finger moving. Right now, see my fingers moving? So basically right now it's perfectly on the bat, but not perfectly centered. So centered means it needs to be pressed perfectly into the middle so there's no lumps or bumps. Also, if the clay starts to squirt out from underneath your hand down on the bottom, it's advisable to take your finger and to scrape back to get rid of that lump. It'll make that easier. I'm going to get my hands wet again. One hand on the side, one hand on the top. Press in and down at the same time. Hands interlocked. You can feel it when it starts to go on center because they'll stop trying to nudge back at you. See how it's starting to get closer? I'm going to do it one last time. So that is pretty well centered at this point. I'm going to scrape again down along the bottom. I should be able to take my fingers here and set it on there, and they're not going to wobble around a lot. Also needs to be like that across the top. Okay, now I need to find the location for the middle. This actual little bump right here is going to give me a pretty good indication where the middle is. I'm going to take my thumbs, I'm going to move across to the middle, hands on either side now that it's centered, so I can actually keep my hands straight, elbows against my legs. I'm going to press down and in with my thumbs and start to create a little hole or well up here at the top. I like that. So now I need to push down and in further. Yeah, I do have something in my clay. Looks like a pencil lead. Sometimes things get through when you're wedging and you won't feel it. Actually, that's pretty big. Alright. I'm going to take a little bit of clay and fill that back in. That's not advisable to have happen though. Usually you catch stuff like that when you're wedging your clay, but whoa, that should fix that problem. Okay, so I'm going to put my thumbs back down in there. I'm going to press down and in to the point where I think I'm getting close. It needs to be about a thickness of the pencil laid sideways. Kind of like this thickness down through the middle here in the bottom. When I think I'm close, I'm going to take this sponge, get the water out from down there. I'm going to stop the wheel for a second. And I'm going to basically take this tool, I'm going to poke down into the clay. I'm going to take my finger down to the point where I'm touching the clay and I'm going to pull that out. Is that about the thickness of what I showed you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really close. So now I know the bottom thickness for this in the middle is the thickness that needs to be for creating our cylinder shape here. So now I'm going to take the sponge and work back and forth and get rid of the hole in the bottom. So now basically we had it centered and I have the hole perfectly in the middle. Now I need to go in and create the bottom and pull it open. So I'm going to take my left hand, put it down inside where I put my fingers down in there, thumb on the outside, so basically this hand is just going to pinch. I'm going to take my right hand on top and I'm going to use that to pull my hand out. So I'm using my hand on hand to help steady myself to pull this open. Just like that. So now I need to basically work on pulling the walls up. So my left hand's going to go inside, the right hand is going to be on the outside. I'm going to basically pinch straight across. So I'm going to pinch in the clay and go straight up with my hands. So see if my hands wiggle a little bit on the outside. If I keep my hands under control though, it'll go straight. So if I feel like that I can keep my hands straight across from each other, it's going to do a better job for wanting to go up evenly. If the top gets a little uneven, I can take my hands. I'm going to take my left hand and hold on to the clay. Use my hand on top with the sponge here and push down and straighten the top up. Okay. I can even use the sponge on the outside to do the same type of thing to help slide the clay along in my hand and then my hand on the inside. I don't want to leave a lot of water in here. If I leave too much in, it'll start to eat through it. I'm going to start here at the bottom, pinch in against the clay. Even pressure on either side and go straight up with my hands, and the clay should follow my hands straight up. All the way up to the top edge. Again, if the top gets uneven, if I take my hand, left hand hold on to the clay like this and take my sponge and wrap it around the top, I can even it back out. If it's really uneven and I can't get it straightened back up, if I go back and use this side that's pointed or the pencil tool, I lightly hold on to the clay, push that in and slowly go straight in until it goes all the way through millimeter by millimeter and lift up, I can actually trim the top off. Now I need to take the sponge though and re-round that back up after cutting that off. And now I'm going to bring the clay up more again. I'm going to put my left hand down on the inside, right hand on the outside here, even pressure on either side. Pinch into the clay and go straight up with my hands.